kids. We are at Eastern Kentucky University, and I'm here with my friend Kevin Case. He is a guitar professor here at the university, and today he's going to show us about all kinds of guitars. I know you guitar lovers are going to really enjoy this segment. I'm so glad you agreed for us to come today, Mr. Case.
Same. I'm so happy to be here and to show you guys some of my cool instruments and get to take a little tour down the history of the guitar and maybe some of the differences that you'll learn about our instruments. So our first instrument here that we're going to be taking a look at is the steel string guitar. This particular instrument is by the maker Bedell. It's got rosewood back and sides and a spruce top. So guitars are wooden instruments. They're all made out of different types of woods, and they give them a different tone. This particular one has steel strings on it, so this gives it a bright chiming feature. And something that we'll look at in a minute is the classical guitar, which has nylon strings. So this one has a history of folk music and bluegrass, which the little intro lick here was kind of a folk bluegrass style. But you can also play this not just with this, which is called a pick or a plectrum. You can also play it with your fingers. So I'm going to hold my pick here and give us a little fingerstyle folk tune. Now for our next little part, let's look at the differences between the steel string that I was just playing and this classical guitar. So physically, whenever you look at them, their body shapes are a little different. This one has a little wider, what we call the lower bout, than the other one. And then this one is actually a little thinner. And if you notice this little part here, this is actually an electric. So kind of on the rare side, but still really awesome. Now let's look up here. This part is called the headstock. This is where the strings are attached. So as you can see on this classical guitar, you can see straight through it. That's where these strings are actually tied on in a loop, as opposed to the steel string, which are tied on to these posts on the tuning pegs. The next thing I want to point out is the bridge. That's the section where the strings are attached at the body. So on the classical guitar, they are tied on as well. These nylon strings are really stretchy so that we can bend them and move them. Nylon is a plastic material, and back in the old days, whenever this guy was around, they actually used gut strings. So gross intestines, they would stretch across and dry out, and they would use them as their strings. Nowadays, it's not very clean and sanitary to do that. So instead, we use plastic and metal that are wound around a silk core, or the middle of the string. So on this classical guitar, we have a bridge section, and instead of being tied on, we use these things called bridge pins. So each one of these little round circles that you can see here have a piece that goes about this long and deep into the guitar, where the ball end of the string is kind of held in place with tension on the guitar. So let's take a look and listen at the difference from the steel string guitar and the classical. So the first thing that you'll notice as I play the classical guitar is it's a little quieter. Also, it's a lot wider in this section than the other one, and that's for fingerstyle. So this guitar is traditionally and mainly played with your fingers on both hands. I'll play you a quick little piece. Along with playing with your fingers and plucking each individual string, you can also take each of your fingers and strum all the strings at once. This technique is called rasgueado. It's your big fancy Spanish word for the day. Yeah. So what we're going to do is play some chords, and we're going to strum with all of our fingers. right, so for our next toy to look at, we're going to compare our steel string guitar, which is hollow on the inside, to this electric guitar that is semi-hollow. So physically they look very different body shapes and everything, and very different thickness. But the thing that they have similar are their strings. These are both steel string instruments. The tuners are very similar. The headstocks have a little different shape. Everybody has their own special style that they like to do their instruments in. This is an Ibanez semi-hollow. So if we look into this guy, you could see there's a big old chunk of wood running right down the center of the instrument. So, and then we have on either side, we have these things called F-holes. And that's the special design, kind of like a violin, viola, cello, and bass, those string family instruments. This is kind of an older style of guitar because of the F-holes. But if you see these two big silver or big gold blocks in the center, these are called pickups. And that's what makes it electric. So these are magnets that take the vibration of the string and turn it into an electric signal that comes out the side of the guitar and into our amplifier, which we'll look at in a second as well. So let's go ahead and hear the difference. So, what you just heard was the electric guitar signal coming out of this guitar through this fancy rig that I have here, which is a combination of pedals, as you can see from here, as well as this amplifier. So we have a speaker system that goes through there. Now, the way the electric guitar makes sound is if I turn everything off, you can see pretty quiet. Can't really hear anything. Can't rock and roll with an electric guitar without all this special stuff. What happens is as I play, the strings vibrate from being plucked. Then these pickups that I just mentioned here take that vibration and turn it into an electrical signal. They're magnets, and whenever you vibrate against a magnet, it creates a disruption in the electromagnetic field. Big fancy words for you today. And that gets sent through these knobs and the electronics here through my cable and back into my system here. Now let's talk about the solid body electric guitar. So different from the semi-hollow, this is actually one giant chunk of wood that's been carved out into this shape, and then drilled into these are again our pickups. That's what makes it an electric guitar, these pickups here. Now the difference between the main noticeable sonic difference between these two guitars is the feedback that happens. On a semi-hollow guitar, you still have those F-holes on there that can resonate and create a feedback loop, which gives it kind of an open and airy sound. And you notice whenever I play this solid body guitar, no feedback, nothing happens, and you can rock just 10 times harder on a solid body guitar. The evolution that happened between those two is just from that. They started putting pickups on these hollow body guitars and they would feedback like crazy. I'll see if I can get my semi-hollow out and show you something like that. Now the thing that I was talking about before, feedback, is what happens when you have signal that comes through the guitar and through your guitar rig and out the speaker and then vibrates back into the guitar. You can hear my voice talking through there. So now I'm going to let these strings go and you get to hear kind of what everybody's been talking about. out of all these guitars, I personally tend to gravitate towards the semi-hollow. It's got a real smooth sound. It's really easy to play, and I like to play this kind of style on it.
Mr. Case, thank you so much for allowing us to come to EKU today and see all your wonderful collection of guitars. I hope you've really enjoyed this, kids, because I know I have. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us, Mr. Case?
Sure. So it's been great getting to showcase some of my instruments and be here virtually with you guys. I am available for lessons and any type of musical related questions. If you'd like to get in contact with me, please contact Miss Newland and she'll get a hold of me.